Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlawn Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlawn Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Probably should have said Mr. Basketball.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. We have a new guest, first-time guest, Ken Lien, who is known as Mr. Basketball of Minnesota, but he's also the head of the Lien Marketing group. And first time with us. Should be an interesting discussion in terms of the Mr. Basketball aspect. I do want to mention one thing today, which is an unusual day for us, in that we are being joined with another sponsor here in 2016, and during the next program we'll have all that information up and a video, but Dr. Charles Crutchfield has graciously agreed to become one of our sponsors, and the sponsors enable us to do things like have a presence online, to supply polo shirts to the staff, cups, once a year, generally a party, things like that. So we really appreciate, and Dr. Crutchfield, who is one of the leading dermatologists and one of the leading doctors in the country, joining us, and it's going to be a pleasure to have him with us. And he'll be with us actually on January 29th. Mary, stop waving your hands, in the control room. Ken Lien.
Yes, sir. Hi, Alan.
How does a marketer become Mr. Basketball? Or maybe you want to trace us a little bit through your background.
Well, Mr. Basketball, I'm an educated teacher and was a high school coach. Mr. Basketball was started in 1975. And I did not start it. I came on 2 years after that. But it originally was started because the fellow that did it, his name was Bob Wernes, wanted to promote high school basketball.
Now, you were in the marketing field at that time, right? You still are?
Yeah, I was in sales and marketing. So I met him one day, and he said I could use some help on the committee. So I said, sure, I'll help you out. And a few years later, he stepped down because he got tired of it, and here I am. So,
Well, not quite that simple, though.
This is my 39th year.
Well, you found something, and obviously, that agrees with you.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people don't know what Mr. Basketball of Minnesota is.
Right.
And I might add that since it was started here and has been so successful, it's been emulated in several other states around the country. And there are a few Mr. Basketball states now.
Right.
But let's talk about this.
Well, Mr. Basketball is basically a volunteer entity group. We just go watch. I have a committee of 8 people. We go watch high school basketball players. We going into the season, we'll have maybe a list of 50 or 60 kids that we're aware of, have seen over the past few years, and then we go watch them play. And then we, about this time of year, we get down to a top 12 or something, and we concentrate just on those 12. Mr. Basketball of Minnesota has nothing to do
evaluating them.
Pardon?
Evaluating them for.
Yes, evaluating them on their basketball skills, team play, But generally speaking, the percentage of the award is basketball talent. And how did they make their teammates better, or that kind of thing. Character.
And 39 years, it has also evolved into something more than just the evaluations. You have tournaments, you have camps, you have other things. So let's talk about just what's involved.
I have run a couple tournaments, but we do not do any camps or anything like that. The summertime we'll spend going watching some players that are playing in their all-star teams, get a chance to watch some of
The
those kids.
website talks about summer camps. Is that merely just something in the offing, or is
No.
it something?
No, I don't know where that came from. I don't know.
Oh, check your website.
I will. But it's we spend a lot of time. Basketball's a long season, and we might try and be fair to the kids. And if there's somebody out there that we haven't seen, I've been known to drive to Fergus Falls and back, or Chisholm and back, and one night just because we're going to go out and see a kid play. So we give them every opportunity to show us how good they are. And we want to, when we get down to the top 12 or so, we'll have seen those kids, every committee member will have seen those kids about 5 times each. Because you can go one night and the kid probably can't throw the ball in the ocean and foul trouble or whatever the case might be. So we want to make sure we give them all kinds of chances to shine.
Well, it'd be pretty much the same as what's done in the pros, really. An evaluation of the best player of the year is not a one-time shot.
Right. Yeah.
And so the committee is evaluating who? All players, seniors?
Seniors only.
Seniors only.
Yep.
Okay, so we have someone like Tyus Jones, who is playing, I think, in Apple Valley a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And did he ultimately move on to become Mr. Basketball
Yes,
of
he did.
Minnesota?
Yep.
He
2 years
did.
ago.
That's what I thought. And he jumped right from high school to the pros.
No, he played at Duke one year.
Oh, did he?
They won the championship his freshman year, and then
That's right. That's
he
right.
decided to go pro.
Yeah. And which a lot of very talented players do. We're seeing it now with football players who are announcing that they're going to go pro.
Sure.
And it's the same thing in basketball.
Well, you know, when Duke won the championship, he played very well throughout that tournament, and his stock was very high. So that's a good time to leave when your stock is high.
And he is probably, 20 years of age now, 21?
He just turned 19 a few months ago.
He's only 19 now. He got out of high school at 17.
He was early, yes. Yeah, he's
Wow.
a young student.
I did
In
not.
fact, the Timberwolves right now could have 4 of the 5 starters could be 20 years or 19 years old. A pretty young team.
Well, as I read the sport page, I see that mentioned, that this is the team of the future, but it's not the team of the present.
No, not even
by
close.
any means. Now, somebody who is selected as Mr. Basketball of Minnesota gets some sort of an award, and what do they get?
We have a design. I sat down with Jostens a few years ago, and we designed a very nice championship ring, if you will. And so the winner gets the ring, and they also get a very nice trophy, big plaque.
And you have that ring with you today.
I do.
So let's see if we can focus on that ring and get a close-up on it. And
You want me
we'll
to
go
show it
with,
now?
yeah, if we can have camera 1 move in on it. And let's see what we get. Now, what is that, onyx and a diamond?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We used to let them choose whatever color they wanted for the stone, but it got crazy sometimes, so I just went with the onyx because it looks more professional that way.
Now, this is a volunteer operation, the Mr. Basketball operation,
Yes.
and it's funded by the individuals who are involved.
We donate time, spend our own money for gas, whatever. I work closely with the Minnesota high school basketball coaches, and they help us out with a few things. But
Now, do the coaches know when you're showing up for an evaluation, or are you just another spectator?
I generally do not like to talk to the coaches beforehand. I'll go up and talk to them afterwards. Because if some kid sees that we're there, they can get a little uptight and they're trying to do too much and they get too intense, if you will. So I generally don't go up and talk to a coach till after the game.
We mentioned Tyus Jones, but actually quite a few of your Mr. Basketball number ones have gone on to college. Mm-hmm. Have you helped to facilitate that?
No, we don't get involved in that, do not want to get involved in that. But these kids have been playing, if they're that good or that level to play a high D1 level, they've been playing during the summer all over the country, and coaches have seen them, so they get a chance to evaluate them. That's changed a lot for Minnesota because these kids are being seen, because a lot of these programs, summer programs, will take their kids and go. When I was running all-star teams, we went to Kentucky and Las Vegas and Indianapolis, and there's an open time when the college coaches can watch. And so we tried to play so they would be able to see us play.
And quite a few of the winners have also gone on to professional basketball.
Yeah, percentage-wise, there's a few. There's not all of them, but...
Well, percentage-wise, very few people get to play for a professional sport, no matter what.
Exactly.
They're probably, as I was talking to my grandson last night on the phone, I said there are probably 3 million students throughout the country playing football at the moment. And how many are going to make? 500 are going to make the teams, or 1,200, whatever it is. The percentages are against you. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The percentages are against you because
Yeah.
he wants to be a running back and play pro football at 12 years of age. And his coach says, he's a natural. But don't get your hopes up because it's a long way
Things change.
from grammar school, middle school,
That's right.
to the pros. And
I was just going to mention, too, on the Mr. Basketball selection, we do it entirely different than the other states do. I'm not involved with them. We have no national organization, per se. Our committee is the 8 people, and nobody on the committee is an active coach. In other words, they have to have been a coach, college or high school, and I put them on the committee, but we have no active high school coaches on the committee. Now, we do it, our process, most of the states that choose their Mr. Basketball, a lot of them are chosen by the sports writers. They'll vote on it, and then whoever gets the most votes, they take it. But I'll tell you that they don't go out and see the kids like we do.
I was going to say, yours is a much more thorough
We think so.
procedure.
Yes.
Yeah, because you have people who are seeing them probably 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So you winnow down that 60 at the start of the season who from years past are really ascending to prominence in the state. Right. And then you spend a lot of time with the 8 of you viewing that 60. Now there comes a point where that 60 is, again, winnowed down to what, 12 you said?
Well, generally speaking, about the middle of January, we get that number down to 15, maybe 12. Try and get it down as far as we can so we can see the top players play as many times as we can.
And has that been done this year?
Yes.
Last night?
Yes.
Are those names made public?
No, they aren't.
They're not. So we're not going to have any disclosure here of
No, we
who
won't
in
have that today.
particular that we are looking at.
At one time I used to do like the top 25,
Yeah.
and every player, parents that 26 and on up would call me and chew me out how stupid I was because I didn't put their kid on the top 25. So after a lot of years, I figured out that it isn't worth the aggravation. So we don't make any announcement until we announce the final 5.
And at that point, then what happens?
Well, then we usually announce that about a week or 2 before the state tournament, and then we announce the winner of the Mr. Basketball a week after the state tournament.
And Mr. Basketball doesn't have to be on the team that won the tournament.
No.
It's strictly individual talent.
That's right. Yeah.
So tourney play doesn't necessarily factor in at all if his team lost. And I say his team, but what about women?
There's a Miss Basketball, and that is run by the Minnesota High School Girls Coaches Association. They have their own committee and selection process. And
Similar to yours, or done by the coaches?
no, theirs are all high school coaches, which can be a little bit tough because a lot of the coaches are coaching their own team, so it gets hard for them to go out and see the other players.
Well, not only that, but there's also the question of favoritism. If you have a particularly good student athlete on your team,
Yeah.
that you might subconsciously lean toward that student.
And when our committee first started out, we had probably half the committee was active coaches. Well, we'd get into a discussion, and just what you said, we'd be talking about somebody, and some coach would say, well, we went over there and kicked their fannies in a scrimmage 2 weeks ago, yada, yada, yada. And so we had a lot of that kind of stuff, and so I said, that's it, we're going to go with all non-coaches.
Or former coaches,
Or
whatever.
former coaches,
Yeah,
but not
yeah,
active.
Yeah.
Yep.
How much time is involved from the time basketball starts to really March, April, when the tournaments are played?
My wife would probably say way too much, but we, as a committee, we'll meet about 5 or 6 times through the season, and then most weeks I'm out at least 3 nights a week watching high school games.
And who assigns the members to watch which teams?
Well, I'll go through the schedule, and because I don't like to have all 8 committee guys go to the same game. I'm going to spread out.
Right.
And so we'll have discussions on that and decide who's going to go where and that kind of thing.
And then you have these periodic meetings during, so you don't actually assign the members to go out and watch particular games?
Yes, they do go out and see particular games.
Oh.
But I don't want to have all 8 of us go to the game at Minnetonka, for example, because I need them out. We need to be spread out all over the place. And interesting, last night there was a couple of people that were on our list, and I removed them last night because I found out that their characters of such was poor, be a bad representation of Mr. Basketball. So I removed them from the list.
No, that's a subjective decision that you made based on what?
First of all, you hear about what's maybe happened, and I'll call and talk to the coaches, and they'll say, yeah, that happened. And
So what are the criteria for Mr. Basketball?
well, besides the overall basketball talent, we are very concerned about their character, academics, and on that subject, it really doesn't matter if the kid's a C student or an A student. Yeah, and obviously, if they're failing, they're not being able to play anyway because they wouldn't be eligible because of grades. So, and how do they make their team better? Do they make their team better? Some players are very, very selfish and they don't share the ball much.
So leadership qualities and selflessness are 2 of the considerations.
That's right.
Have you ever had 2 winners in one year?
We have. I really, really don't like doing that, but we have done that a couple times. 2 or 3 times, I think.
Now, you people are all volunteers, and yet you do have expenses, obviously. You have traveling expenses, you have expenses for the ring that you give out. What raises the money?
It's all volunteer. Every person on the committee spends buys their own gas and that kind of thing, and actually I get Jostens donates the ring for the
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Jostens being the outfit that does all the college rings around the country.
Correct.
That's a pretty nice donation.
Oh, it's tremendous. They've been doing that for about 30 years with us.
Now, what's your connection with Jostens?
Well, when I first started, I knew one of their reps was on my committee, and he said, I mentioned to him, would that be a possibility? And so he went and checked with the people at Jostens, and they said, sure, we'd love to do that. And so that's where it came about.
And of course, they get a lot of goodwill as a result of
Sure.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Jostens likes that, of course, because they're trying to sell graduation gowns and yearbooks and everything else. So
Yeah.
feeds right into that.
So you say you don't have camps, but you do have tourneys. Tell us about those.
Do not have tournaments anymore.
Oh,
At one time we used to, but there are so many tournaments out there run by other people, and it gets difficult to do. You've got most of the colleges are going to have a camp, that kind of thing. In a tournament, there's an organization out there called the Breakdown USA, and they run a lot of good tournaments, very good tournaments, and they bring in good teams. Now the Timberwolves, the first Saturday in January, they have what they call the Timberwolves Shootout, and they bring in they have 4 Minnesota teams, and they bring 4 teams from out of state. This year was a team from Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, and Iowa came over, and that was interesting. The team from Iowa City West, is a really good high school team, very good. They've got some players on there that one is the Lowhouse. Brad Lowhouse used to play for the Timberwolves. It's his son, although he couldn't play because he blew his ankle here about 3 weeks ago. And then there's the head coach at Iowa, Fran McCaffrey. He has 2 sons on that team, and they're both very, very good.
I read something about an invitational. What is that?
Well, that could be one of those tournaments that, like the Minnesota Breakdown, that's what they're called, Breakdown USA, they run those tournaments, and it's an invitational. It's called their classic or an invitational, and they basically, they have several tournaments. The biggest one is on a Saturday, usually about the 2nd week in December, 3rd week in December, and that's an all. There's 22 teams, 11 games, and it goes all day long. And it's
But a great opportunity for you to do some evaluation.
Yeah, we camp out there and eat gourmet hot dogs and things like that.
Gourmet hot dogs are to be desired. Now, in addition to this, you're running Lien Marketing Group.
Right.
I can understand why your wife says she never sees you, but that can keep a marriage together for years also. So,
Well, my grandmother used to say, "Distance make the heart grow fonder." So,
what does Lien Marketing do?
I help company with their name brand identification. Work with them on anything they might need in terms of promoting their company. Signs, it could be apparel, anything like that. So it's a fun job. We have a massive company of 1, just me, and I enjoy that because I office in my own home. So you get out of bed in the morning and get your coffee and go to the office. I used to have a big warehouse for him, but I really don't need that. I've got over 2,000 vendors that I use, and now I just set up where they ship it right to the company, and I don't have to keep stock of all that stuff.
So really, you're the middleman there.
Yep, I am. Yeah.
The instigator.
So if you're looking for good cups or polos or something, you should call me sometime.
Well, now that we know that,
I had to get a plug in there somehow, you know.
no, it's fine. We've used Egan Shirtworks for years. and
Sure.
For all I know, they may be a customer of yours.
Yeah. No, they're independent. They're their own independents.
So, tell me some of the names of people who have gone on to the pros.
Oh gosh, 1975 was Gene Glenn. He was from Waseca, Minnesota.
That's a familiar name.
Yes, and he played basketball at Mankato State, but then he he currently is the third base coach for the Minnesota Twins right now. The next year was a
That's
fellow.
why that name is familiar.
Yes.
That's,
Gene's a great guy. Next one was Kevin Mchale from Hibbing. And he,
another name
Yes,
that certainly anybody who follows the sport pages would know.
Then we had Jim Peterson, who played at St. Louis Park, played at the University of Minnesota, and now he does the color commentary on the Timberwolves broadcasts. Randy Brewer was from Lake City. He played also for a few years for the Timberwolves. Kevin Lynch from Wilmington Jefferson. He played in the pros. He played for Charlotte at the time. So there have been a number that have gone on. Khalid El-Amin from Minneapolis North. There's a guy that has tremendous will to win. And when he went to Connecticut, I never thought he would do as well as he did, as fast as he did. When he was a freshman, he led them to the national collegiate title. And then he went pro. So, I mean, he's I've never seen a player with as much will to win as Khalid.
That actually counts for a lot. And you need an inspirational player. You need a Lindsey Whalen on
That's
the
right.
team, a fireplug. You need a Brian Dozier on the team, a fireplug.
That's right.
Somebody who is going to inspire the other. I certainly have to include Torrey Hunter in that in terms of baseball. That'll be experience and inspirational for the other players.
And it's always nice when the best player is also the best leader, because then the rest of the team follows in.
Now, is there anybody on the University of Minnesota now, the basketball team, who has been a Mr. Basketball?
No, there's one player who was a finalist one year, Joey King from Eastview, but there aren't any winners right now.
And you have a function at some point where all this is announced?
Well, we used to run a banquet every year, and we would draw 300-400 people. It was a nice setting, nice situation. But then when the AAU basketball came on, the numbers went down because a lot of these kids are playing, the underclassmen are playing weekends and stuff like that.
So where does the announcement get made now?
So, well, I make the announcement. Usually, last few years I've made the announcement either on CCO radio during the day, or I've done it with Pat Royce on KSTP. But now what we do is we have a reception at the player's school, which is nice because a lot of his friends can come to that. You know, not every kid can afford a $30 or $35 ticket.
That's
to go
true.
to the banquet. This way, more people get involved.
We've been talking to Ken Lien. Ken, who, in addition to being a marketer of some repute, is also Mr. Basketball of Minnesota, or runs Mr. Basketball of Minnesota. And we'll look for this year's selection. Ken, thanks a lot for coming in.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. I survived.